can be tricky till you see how to do it, right? But that's kind of the way everything is in life. Everything is obvious once you know the right answer, right? So it says an increase in the price of input X will have what effect on the cost line on a normal XY graph? So the way to think about that is, so you've got your x-axis and your y-axis. Normally we talk about capital and labor, right? These are my inputs. It actually doesn't matter which is on which axis in the way I've asked that question. But this is my cost line, right? We call that my ISO cost line. So cost line or ISO cost line. ISO meaning the same. So every combination costs the same along that. And the cost line is the same thing you can think of as my budget line. Okay? And so all that means is what this purchase is all combinations. I'm going to use combo for combination. All combinations of labor and capital I can buy. So if I want to buy a little bit of, so if I want to spend my money on all labor, no capital, I'd be right there. If I wanted to spend it on, all capital, no labor, I'd be up there, and I could buy any combination. By labor, I mean labor hours, and capital, I mean machine time, like machine hours. Okay. Now, if I have $1,000 and the wage rate is, I have to pay $10 an hour. Okay. What happens if the wage rate doubles? What's going to happen to this budget line? It's going to swing that way. Is this point going to be affected? No, not unless the machine, like the rate of machine time, the machine rate changes, right? So what that means is this guy is going to swing kind of in, okay? So this is my this is my horizontal axis, or my x-axis. And this is my x-intercept, so you can say the x-intercept gets smaller, gets closer to the origin. Say this line gets steeper, okay? Now, so the first step is we'll say that's why the answer is C, a decrease in the horizontal intercept. This guy is the vertical intercept, or my y-intercept. Right? So if the wage rate the machine time rate went down, this innovation, so computer time gets cheaper, then this guy that y-intercept would swing up because I could buy more computer time. Okay? Now, what happens if I double my budget but keep the wage rate and the machine time rate constant? Okay, that's the parallel outward shift of the line. And as is more common, budgets get cut. So that means this would shift in, but it would keep the same slope. Okay. Number 17, the idea behind 17 is this bang for the buck idea, which is, I want to rate this ratio of the marginal product of labor over the wage rate. I want to compare it to the marginal product of capital over the rental rate. Okay? The marginal product of labor, remember, is, in this case, it's going to be the amount of output produced by that last worker I hired. Okay? And the wage rate, of course, is what I paid that worker. And then the marginal product of capital is how much output did I get from that last machine hour that I used, and how much did it cost me to rent that. Okay? So if the example says, look, what if it's $8, or I get 8 units of output and it cost me $4 an hour, so these guys are like slaves or something. And then I'm comparing it here to 2 units of output at $2 an hour. Okay? Yeah, 2 units at $2 an hour. So this is bigger than that. Okay? So I'm getting more bang for my buck from labor. Okay? So there's several questions I could ask on that. If I'm at the cost minimizing point, this ratio, these two ratios will be equal. If they're not equal, as they're not in this case, I know I'm not at the cost minimizing combination of labor and capital. There's a combination of labor and capital I could use that would produce the same amount for cheaper. Okay? That's part one. Then the next part is, by doing it this way, I want to use more of whichever one I'm getting more bang for my buck from currently, and less of the other one. Okay? The intuition is that if I'm in diminishing returns, if I hire the next worker, instead of getting 8 units of output from him or her, I'll get 7 or 6.5 or 6, I don't know, but it'll go down, but I still have to pay him the wage rate. $4 an hour, back when that was. And then, same thing though, if I back off, if I'm in diminishing returns, the prior machine hour I got more from. So by using more of this and backing off from capital, I'm moving into those ratios are equal. Okay? So I could ask you, what should I do with labor? I could ask you, what should I do with capital? So what's the answer here? I want to use, what do I want to do with labor? More, which means less of capital. So that's why the answer is B as in boy.